Alright, everyone, this is Paul Gaither. This is Madden NFL 2003. Let's pick a random team. The Eagles? Oh, I don't want the Eagles. It doesn't really matter. Eagles, Raiders, whatever. I just wanted to pick a random team because I wanted to do a new franchise. Not that we're going to really start it, but just wanted to grab a team and say Fantasy Draft on. And let's go to Fantasy Draft. And let's tell it to simulate the entire draft. And we want to record a draft breakdown. Round by round. Highlighting important players as we go through. So we can actually project and make a draft board. You call it like cheating. Like, oh, you know when the best players are going to go. It's like you get a feel for where they like to go in the draft, so you can pick the team that you want. Now, multiple players, like multiple humans involved, and that can like throw a wrench into everything. But it's interesting to take a look at the logic of the computer and what kind of players you want to target and where they're going to be when you're building your team. So we're 30 some odd rounds out of 47. We're getting towards the end. And it'll just be interesting to talk about the philosophy of who the computer chose and where we would like to build also in mind with that. So, view draft summary. Round one. In this one, the Rams went first and they got their guy Marshall Faulk, and Tampa Bay went second and got their guy. Is this real? Tampa Bay went second and got their guy Warren Sapp. Michael Strahan went to the Giants. Ray Lewis went to the freaking Ravens. Like, the first four picks went to their original teams. Really? Wow. Is that a coincidence or what? I'm glad I got that on film. I am glad I got that on film. So then they go corner. There's no guarantee it's going to be this exact order, but they go corner of all positions. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about philosophically in the rosters, who are you going to build a team around? Quarterback, like your field general. I don't see Peyton Manning taken in the top. I don't see the Tom Brady's taken in the top. I don't see those guys taken the top of the draft. Feature running backs. Like, Marshall Faulk is a special player. There's no doubt about it. They're all special players here. But, like, I believe in running back by committee. I believe in having a good offensive line, having a good scheme, following your fullback, and getting the job done. You saw what I was able to do with Garrison Hurst. Not to disrespect Garrison Hurst, but he's like an 80-something overall, like, halfback, right? Like, I can get things done with a stable of running backs. Guys that are just good enough, that can follow their blocks, break a tackle here or there, and get down the field. So I don't want to build a team around that. In real life, I would build a team around a defensive tackle. Warren Sapp, I can't disagree with that decision. I can't disagree with Michael Strahan. Like, clog up the middle, rush the passer, do something like that. Ray Lewis is definitely a team motivator and an anchor, the central part of a defense. So you can't go wrong with the middle linebacker, though I don't have any problems with Derek Smith as an 80 overall. No, he's not even an 80. He's a 70 overall, I believe, middle linebacker. Still flies around the field, still makes tackles, still gets the job done. I don't think I would invest my number one selection in a middle linebacker. I don't know. I mean, Ray Lewis is the one that has 2 Super Bowl rings. Derek Smith doesn't have any, so who am I to say it, right? But, excuse me, that's also part of the difference of, like, real life and the video game is I'm not afraid of Ray Lewis in the video game. Real life, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to get tackled by him. But video game Ray Lewis, don't fear him. There's a reason why I think in Madden 2005, yeah, that was like the fear of the D and all that. Madden 2003 and a lot of these games, like, whatever. The dude doesn't even have 70 speed. I think he's got like 69 speed. So I can just live without really all the linebackers. Plus, the bias of, like, I really like my linebacker core with the 49ers. I really like having Jamie Winborn. I like having Julian Peterson. I like having Jeff Olbrich. I like having all those guys. I was having the hiccups and trying to keep that off camera. But And these are guys that are like 70-something and lower overall. So I don't need to blow my first picks on that. Corner is interesting. We're not going to go every single player like, but it's interesting to talk about the positions and where you would focus your team. And at corner, there's a few guys, right? Charles Woodson, Ty Law, well, more Champ Bailey, obviously, but Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey, maybe not Ty Law, now he's older. It's like, I mean, early 90s, mid 90s, whatever, like 98, 99, 97, whatever, okay. But even here, it's like still really good. But yeah, the idea is like lock down the side of the field. Get a Champ Bailey, get a Charles Woodson. Like, I could see that as a top selection. There aren't a lot of great corners, so getting one or maybe even spending your first 2 picks on them is not a bad decision. Double lockdown, call cover 2, man under, press them up, just cause all kinds of havoc. They can undercut routes and everything, and you've got 2 safeties over the top, whoever they are. Like, that's a thing. Pass rushers, I don't know about Courtney Brown or whatever. And then, yeah, now you've got, I mean, okay, yeah, like Michael Strahan, okay, that's a difference maker. Courtney Brown, yeah, well, whatever. He's 93 in this game. Randy Moss, wide receiver. Take the top off the defense, game changer. Terrell Owens, game changer, all that. And yet you've seen what I can do with a J.J. Stokes. Right? Like, I don't need an elite guy. It helps. It's nice. A top quarterback. And then there's, like, the fantasy aspect, right? It's called fantasy draft. So it's like, oh, you want your big names. It's the other thing with quarterback. How much do we care about the overall? How much do we care about the name? How much do we care about the ratings and abilities? Because I think Drew Brees in this game is like a 71 overall. So is it the name that we're getting? Drew Brees got like 84 throwing power, 84 accuracy. You know, it's not the 99 Drew Brees. It's the 71 overall Drew Brees. Do you sit and wait and get him? Do you go and grab 77 overall Michael Vick? Like, who do you go and get? Especially, you're picking in the top 10. Like, do you pick a Michael Vick? Do you pick a Drew Brees? Of course you don't, right? But you sit on them. You wait. So, Warner's gone. Favre is gone. Curtis Martin's there. McNabb, Holt, Junior Seau, elite outside linebacker. Sam Madison gets taken. Sam Madison was an elite corner at the time. There's Charles Woodson. I mean, I'd rather have him, even though he's a lower overall. I'd rather have him. Corey Dillon's a heck of a back. Champ Bailey. Champ Bailey is gone. Champ Bailey is gone. That sucks. Washington takes it. Several of these teams, it's not all, but several of these teams are taking their actual guy. Remember, Champ Bailey was with Washington before he was with Denver. That's fascinating. That is fascinating. Yeah, Owens is gone at 22. Culpepper, Green. Marvin Harrison, wide receiver. Boston, really? Brian Urlacher later on the board. Urlacher is one of those guys with his like 85 speed that can super fly around the field. I said I'm happy with Derek Smith. Urlacher is definitely a game-changing kind of guy. But yeah, if several of these other guys are off the board, who do you go get? And you know what surprises me? I don't see Tony Gonzalez off the list yet. Peyton Manning's only 92. He's not the 99. He's still taken in the first round, but there you go. Okay, round 2. Larry Allen, Isaac Bruce, Jason Taylor. So offensive line, pass rusher, offensive line, defensive line, more pass rushers, safeties. Justin. No, that's Jimmy Smith. I thought I saw Justin Smith. Justin Smith is like an 89 overall, I think, defensive end or something. Jimmy Smith. Wide receivers, more middle linebackers, safeties, Garcia, offensive linemen to protect your quarterback, star running back, more offensive linemen to like be road graders in the center of your team. There's Ty Law, the second round. Tom Brady, 84 overall. Rich Gannon, Sean Alexander going pretty high. LT is only an 86 overall. I say only, it's because depending on where you're in the draft, you could actually take a dude and then also get LT. Eddie George, Tony Gonzalez, he goes towards the bottom of the second round here. Interesting. Sean Springs, another corner. Brian Dawkins. There's Justin Smith as an 89 overall. Darren Sharper, the hottest hitting safety in the league. LeVar Arrington goes here. Troy Brown. Not Tim Brown. Troy Brown goes up here. Bell Bryant Young goes at the top of the third round. John Abraham, another pass rusher. There's Tim Brown. Troy Vincent, a top corner. Jeremiah was a bullfrog trotter. Joe Horn. Rondé Barber, like the corners are kind of going off the board already. So yeah, it's definitely like get a corner early is definitely a thing. Walter Jones. I don't think I've seen another tight end go off the board, do we? Yeah, Shannon Sharp. And that's another thing. Like, I can make stuff happen with Eric Johnson, who's like a 70 overall or something. But if you got a shot at Tony Gonzalez, I think I'd take him in the first round. If you know that you're selecting before 27 overall, you might grab someone else and then also get Tony Gonzalez. Like, you might go get corner. Like, if you're picking around 15, then you're going to pick 15 and you're going to pick 15. I think we were picking 22, which means we're going to pick on the higher end. So, again, take a corner, take a Tony Gonzalez kind of guy. It's not a bad choice. If you're taking near the top, that means you're taking near the bottom again and you won't get him. So, depending on where you're selecting is also going to make a difference. Yeah, because the next tight end wasn't taken for some time, and it's Shannon Sharp, who's older. Like, you're not going to get many years out of him, so I don't think I would take him so early. The corners are dropping like 87 overall this selection. Safeties, offense, defensive line. It's interesting to note there's some really good defensive linemen that are young, that are going to develop. Like Julius Peppers and Richard Seymour and a few other guys that you can also find in later rounds that will develop as good players. But yeah, there's still quality here. Offensive line, like the wide receivers are like drying up if Peter Warrick is going as an 80 overall. Nate Clements is an 84 overall. Yeah, the corners are disappearing. So just kind of skimming and scanning, and there's Richard Seymour. So he doesn't last too long, right? I thought he would last a little bit longer than that. 85 overall. And there's Julius Peppers, as I mentioned. So they both go in the fourth round. So if you're going to get one, you're only going to get one. Okay, that's fascinating. Besides, here's the other thing. Like, it's Madden. Madden, I just don't see the defensive lineman doing very much. Like, strength is important, getting pushed around in the run game or whatever, but I don't see them pass rushing well. I don't see them pass rushing well. That's, I guess, part of the bias of the game is like, what positions do you actually fear? What positions do you actually find are difference makers? The bus goes in the fifth round. Terrell Davis, like some old running backs, go there. Chris McAllister, corner, nice. The old Rod Woodson, you know, getting a guy who's going to retire, but still important. The fullbacks are starting to go that early. Interesting. Oh, something else is Mike Allstott's like a 78 overall halfback. He's like a 90-something fullback, but the game doesn't have him as a fullback, and you can't change him to fullback. You can't edit the roster in that regard. I can change his number, I can change his equipment, I can do that, but I can't change him to fullback if I want. So, Garrison Hurst gets taken kind of high, like 5th round. Deuce Staley. Still believe in running back by committee. Don't know if I'd, burn an early pick. Other than corner, and even then, how good is corner really? Like, we can play around with Washington and see how good Champ Bailey is or isn't for our team, right? You can, like, play around with these players. It's the Owens that we have a lot of success with the Niners. Like, there's certain guys that are hard to replace, and other guys where you don't care. They're just mix and match, just puzzle pieces. So interesting to see where people go. Matt Light is a tackle. Like, he becomes a heck of a tackle in real life. Vic goes in the 6th round. 78 overall. I thought it was 77. 78 overall. Goes in the middle of the 6th round. So people hang on to him. Like, if you want a mobile quarterback, there you go. Lorenzo Neal also goes in that round as a fullback, as a lead blocker. TJ Duckett. Sean Ellis hangs around like he's a heck of a strong 3-4 defensive end. Is there anything you got to decide what kind of defensive end? Aaron Smith's another 3-4 defensive end. Like, what kind of defense do you want to run? Maybe some of your defense is dictated by who you draft, right? Like, do you get a couple of elite middle linebackers and you want to be a 3-4 defense, and then you just want to pick some strong defensive linemen so your linebackers can fly around and make plays? Is that what you want to do? There's a lot of ways to build a team, and where are the people positioned, and where are you going to get your defensive ends? Because, you know, your nose tackle and your ends, they got to eat blocks, right? Willie McGinnis is a defensive end. It's a pass rusher. Even the game is designed for the 4-3 defense. A lot of these players, like, he would be outside linebacker, but in the 3-4. But a lot of the game is like, yeah, it's leveraged towards the 4-3 defense in its design. It doesn't have two gapping and all that. McNair hangs on as an 83 overall later. Interesting. Well, because of the youth, is why Vic was taken earlier, but Air McNair, huh? Todd Heat, Emmitt Smith, Ryan Hines Ward. Hines Ward is young and developing. He's still on a young contract. 85 overall. Kevin Barlow, 74 overall, goes this early. Tony Richardson. Antoine Smith, 82 overall, gets taken in the top 10 rounds. Dwight Freeney's a 76 overall. So yeah, he sits on the board as a pass rusher. Like, you know what he can become in real life. But Sean Rogers is a heck of a nose tackle. Quentin Jammer, solid corner. Casey Hampton as a nose tackle. Yeah, the Steelers nose tackle. Brian Greasy at 80 overall. Warwick Dunn goes in the 8th round. Flozell Adams is a pretty good tackle. Lots of penalties. It was a false start or holding. I think it was false starts, but Flozell Adams was a solid tackle for the Cowboys. Not all-time great, but solid. Old Ray Brown. Hakeem. Chad Pennington goes in the 8th round. We still haven't seen Drew Brees. KGB, defensive end here. Engelberger, don't really care. Philip Buchanan, I know that name with the Raiders. Fast player. Charlie Garner drops here because he's also an older running back. Keith Brooking at linebacker. So the top 10 rounds: Pollard, Des White, Trent Dilfer, Drew Brees. So Drew Brees goes towards the top of the 10th round. So he still ends up getting taken. So there you go. Like, if you want to pick a Drew Brees, remember, 84 accuracy, 84 power. It's not like he's 99 accuracy out there. But if you're willing to take a Drew Brees later, like, you're willing to sit on other quarterbacks, you still get 71 overall Drew Brees on the board if you care about names, right? Reggie Wayne's a 76. You know, he's like a future star. Jerry Rice falls simply because you're going to get 1 year with him. You don't want to overdraft Jerry Rice. Like, a heck of a contributor, but you also don't want to overdraft him because you just get the 1 year. Julian Peterson at linebacker goes that early enough. He ends up becoming like a 98 or 99 linebacker in like Madden 5, Madden 6, something like that. Like, he ends up becoming 98, whatever, like really high overall. I don't know about progression in this game. And then the 49ers don't pay him, and he ends up going to like Seattle or whatever. Ken Lucas at corner's fine. Bubba Franks at tight end. Brian Waters. What's he rated? 77. He ends up becoming a top guard in football for a little while with Kansas City. Trent Green. He's older, though. Interesting. Wesley Walls, the old tight end. I'm not going to get much time with him. And there's a lot of names that I do recognize. Like Pat Williams, a nose tackle here. It's just interesting to think of who goes, who stays on the board, what positions you can omit. Like, you don't have to take a quarterback in the first round. When that, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, whatever, you can still find a Michael Vick. You can still find Drew Brees. Again, if you care about names to quarterback your team. And you can just build a team and then try to draft one in future years, like after the first offseason or whatever. Are you trying to build a fantasy draft for one season to go who so you can win the Super Bowl? Are you trying to build a fantasy draft for a 5-year thing just to keep going, like build a core? Like, what are you trying to do with your fantasy draft? So that's part of it. Just 1 season, 3 seasons, 5 seasons, 10 seasons, like what are you doing? That's also part of your decision making. Right? Tony Parrish at safety. Jamie Winborn, the other 49ers linebacker, goes in the 12th. Tony O'Brien's only a 69 overall. Nice, but he's not developed at all. Edward Reed. Pretty sure that's Ed Reed. Edward Reed. 77 overall rookie. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like, do you care about names? This is not 99 overall Ed Reed. It just isn't. Right? He doesn't have the high tackle rating. He doesn't have the high awareness. He's good. He'll progress. But it's not 99 Ed Reed. But how much will he progress? We'll find out. Maybe we can simulate seasons. Maybe he still is a steal. He still is a steal. And we can find out by simulating years what he progresses into and looking at other guys. But those are things like Marcus Stroud becomes a heck of a defensive tackle in real life. There's Steve Smith, the wide receiver. Like, underrated. 67 overall. Not the 96, 99, whatever overall super wide receiver that he becomes. Just a 67 in the game. Javon Walker's also a heck of a threat. A lot of guys have just, like, really low rated. So it's interesting to still see in these, out of 47 rounds, how many big names, even though they're lower rated, are still, like, getting taken. Like, 13 players. Like, this is, like, half of, like, this is your offense or your defense or your whatever. Right? So you don't even have half your team, or maybe half your team, filled out now. Right? And if you're looking like a split, like offense, defense, whatever, it's interesting. Like, and we're just talking starters, not backups. So, yeah, a lot of names are gonna like start falling. There's Matt Hasselbeck, 71 overall. Like, you can still get Hasselbeck; he's still solid for you. But it's also kind of nice that some of the better young players are getting taken, right? The Julius Peppers, the Richard Seymours, the Julian Petersons, like the guys that we know. What we saw, Dwight Freeney, we saw other guys. John Abraham, or Donnie Abraham. I was thinking John Abraham, the defensive end. No, Donnie Abraham, don't know him. Albert Hainsworth, right? I mean, we know his career arc. He became one of the best nose tackles, defensive tackles in the entire league. Then got a huge paycheck and then just became nothing after he got the big contract deal in the play against Michael Vick where he fell down and he didn't even get back up. That pretty much ruined his career. Ended up going with New England, and Belichick tried to help save his career, and the dude just wasn't worth it. Just didn't care anymore once he got some money. So there you go. He just stopped being a dominant force. It's interesting to see Eric Johnson, the tight end, 15th round. Like we said, around half the team. So we're getting the second half of the team. Eric Johnson's already gone. Some guys are not just going to sit there. Dat Nguyen at middle linebacker. Bill Romanowski, the older guy. Dana Stubblefield gone. Napoleon Harris, solid. Mike Rumpf, of all people, like a 67 corner is gone. Like, you need to draft your corners. You not only need one corner, you're going to need two and even your nickel early enough. You're going to need to solidify your corners if corners really matter in this game, which I kind of argue they don't. I really feel in this game you can just call lots of cover 5, which is, too high, 5-man under, and just try to get the strong guys and press them. And even if you don't get a corner, start drafting them in the NFL draft, like from the created rookies or like the importing from NCAA. It's a give and take. I don't feel there's much value in a Champ Bailey in this video game. Like, it doesn't take away part of the field. Like, I feel I can throw on Champ Bailey. I feel I can throw on everyone in this game. So, again, not real life, but in the video game. So, Tunnel Driver's a 67 overall. And he still gets taken. Jeff Saturday's only 73 overall center. Like, you want to talk about names versus, like, their overall rating. Scrolling. It's just very interesting to see some of those guys go that early, right? Like, backing up. Like, round 16, I say early, 73 overall center. Like, we're trying to pick, the second half of our team here. And some of those guys, like, they're not going to fall too far. You can sit on some guys, John Ritchie, his bloody face and all that. I'd love to have Lorenzo Neal, but when I play the game, I don't see Lorenzo Neal pancaking guys and being a game changer either. I love Lorenzo Neal, but it's another guy where I'm like, okay, whatever. Keith Bullock becomes a heck of a player. Sam Adams-Stale is on the board as an 81 overall, but he's also older. Patrick Kearney, he's a pass rushing defensive end that's got moved to outside linebacker. Again, the inability to change player positions. I can't put Willie McGinnis at outside linebacker. I can't put Patrick Kearney at defensive end. I can't do some of those changes because the game just doesn't let you change players' positions. So, like, that's a thing, like I said, with Mike Allstott's like a 78 overall. I haven't even seen Mike Allstott's name be called yet, right? It's like Allstott will sit on the board. He's a guy that maybe you can sit on and still be happy with your running game, right? Unless I've missed it. Warren Norris, he'll eventually become a 49er and be a heck of a fullback as well. Jeff Ulbrich goes 18th round. Because you got to think, like, 22 rounds is like, in theory, your starters on both sides of the ball. So we're getting to the bottom of our starters. And Jeff Ulbrich is like a backup for the Niners in your team, right? Like, that's all he is. And he's already, like, considered like a starter, like in selections of positions. Mike Vrabel is a starter, but he gets taken later. So Ulbrich and Vrabel. But I think that's the other point here. It's like, I would be plenty happy with Ulbrich and Vrabel in, like, the later rounds. The round 16, 17, like, grab one, grab the other. Right? Get a pass rushing edge one, get the off-ball one, right? Like, get him as your left outside linebacker that kicks out over the tight end, and then get him as your right outside linebacker that's off the ball, right? When you shift the linebacker to that side. And it's fine if you swap it and he's off ball and he's over the tight end if they have the tight end on the left side of the field. But, like, I would be fine with those guys. Now, maybe it's just my own personal bias with Ulbrich. It's like, I don't need to burn my number one overall pick on Junior Seau, even though I love Seau. I don't need to burn number one overall picks or whatever because I feel comfortable with having these guys out there. Now, I don't know if I'd be taking these guys with the 18th pick. I don't know if there's someone else I'd rather have, but Maybe that is where I would take them, just based on who else is on the board. Stokely down the sideline. See, like that famous call by Gus Johnson. I would be happy with those linebackers, but I know that I've got to start taking them at a certain point. Stokes is no legend or anything, but you can see that I can cut apart the computer with Stokes. Like, I can wait till later in the round. Like, if I take one linebacker or the other, then I take Stokes. It's not like I'm trying to rebuild the 49ers. It's a fantasy draft, not just rebuild the Niners. But, like, I can get work done. I can get work done with Ty Streets on the Niners. Like, I can get work done with guys. I don't need to invest really high draft picks, like the first, second, third round kind of thing is my main point. Interesting. As we go through, Doug Jolly, the tight end of the Raiders, that's also fine. I recognize this name, but I don't know how good he was. Maybe there are people you're like, I don't know who any of these people are. I mean, wide receiver Frank Sanders is the starter for the Cardinals or whatever, but it's like, whatever. Jason Elam, the first kicker that I recognize. Kickers start to go before, like, if we talk about 11 offensive players, 11 defensive players, 22, then you start thinking special teams. Yeah, we're about the range where maybe instead of filling out the rest of your 22 starters on offense, defense, you start thinking about your kicker, your punter, your kick returners, whatever. If you haven't already thought about your kick returners, you see teams are still looking at filling out those fullback positions. It's a dime position. I'd rather probably go 3 wide receivers. If I can't get a Lorenzo Neal or something, I might very well just go with 3 wide receivers and just grab whoever to fill out at running back, or sorry, at fullback. There's Ty Streets. So I was just saying I'd be happy with him. It's like, well, you know, he's gone before the first 22 starters, and if he's like your third string or if he's your slot, he's still got to be part of your 22 if you're not taking a fullback, right? And it's just an example. So interesting. Scott Fujita ends up becoming a good linebacker in real life. Not elite, but very good. Okay. Trace Armstrong lasts that while. Eric Warfield, yeah, he's old though, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Ted Johnson's older. Interesting. Patrick passed the fullback with the Patriots. I recognize that. I recognize most of these names. I mean, I grew up with all of them, but interesting to see. David Akers, see here now the kickers and the punters are really coming off the board now. Right? This round 23, like after the starters, now you're like special teams guys. It's kickers and punters, kickers and punters. 23. So you want to get your kicker and punter before 23. If you want to get them and you want to get the best, you got to get them here. You got to get them before 23. You want to spend like 21, 22 or whatever on your kickers and punters if you care about it at all. And then in 24, they start filling out the other rest of the teams that didn't get one. If you got a kicker in one, you get the punter in the other, or vice versa. But you want your best guy, you got to go get there. And this is where you start getting your third string running backs, like your backups for your your rotational stuff, your backup quarterbacks, 74 overall. This is where a lot of the backups are coming along. It's where number 2 quarterback, number 2 halfback, right? Number 3, number 4 wide receivers. You know, nickel back corners. That makes a lot of sense here. Number 2, number 3 defensive tackles. You probably already have both starting defensive tackles, but you're probably doing, if you're in a 3-4, you got your backup nose tackle or whatever. There it is. Teddy Bruschi falls this far, huh? I haven't seen Derek Smith, but I might have passed over. In fact, there's a 65, but there's a 70, and 73, and then Derek Smith, I think, is a 70. So I don't know if we're going to see him as we go through. Deion Branch, the wide receiver who hadn't quite developed. He'll be like an 83 in a future game. And even higher later on. No, it's really fascinating. This is not Adrian Peterson of the Minnesota Vikings. He hasn't even started playing college ball yet. This is the, quote, other Adrian Peterson, I believe, of the Bears or something. So yeah, don't freak out. Okay, Patrick Johnson. See, I believe this game has... I don't know where Chad Johnson is right now. I don't know where TJ Hushmanzada are. But they're like lower overall wide receivers. They might already be gone. We might have already passed them. But it's interesting to start thinking like what other wide receivers, what other quarterbacks, what other running backs. You know, we can see there's Derek Smith, right? Derek M. Smith. Yeah, the backup quarterbacks. Like if you take someone, who would your backup be? If your guy goes down, what do you have? Are you taking offensive linemen to protect them? Brian Westbrook is a weapon. Again, in this game, I don't know so much, but Brian Westbrook is someone who definitely develops into a receiving back. Definitely a good second or third running back on your football team. But how good is he in Madden 2003 is another question entirely. So let's keep scrolling. Well, I don't even know who that's supposed to be. I need to adjust that. But I think this is like a wide receiver with like the Giants or something, I think, that I couldn't find a name for. There is TJ. Who's your mama? Go watch that commercial. The fantasy draft. 58 overall. John Kitna. Tim Dwight. Tim Dwight just did not have the career that everyone hoped that he would have. Go check out Tim Dwight's highlights. He had like the kick return in the Super Bowl for the Falcons against the Broncos and was like part of a trade to the Chargers and was just like a heck of a player, even in Madden 2002, like someone to throw to. But I don't know how good he is in this game, but yeah, Tim Dwight stands out to me. Someone that you can get. That's interesting. Hartwell, only a 60 overall, ends up becoming a very good middle linebacker, but isn't there yet. So we said don't get caught up on names, even though I'm pointing out names. You don't want to get too caught up because they're just not rated well. But it's fascinating to look at it. AJ Touchy-Feely. You can see the quarterbacks falling off as well. Tim Rattay, 32. Not years old, but 32. 32nd round, 52 overall. Scrolling. We'll just keep the game of scrolling. Okay. Adam, true or false? You can say like, oh, it doesn't matter. Wide receiver Rob Moore. Yeah, I believe he's the one that had injury problems. That was like supposed to be a really good player and ended up being just okay. Leon Lett. He's old. Part of the Cowboys. He's the one that famous like against the Bills in the Super Bowl in like the 90s with the fumble. Like he's famous for mistakes, but he was a heck of a defensive tackle. I think he's a bronze in All Pro Football 2K8. But yeah, at this point, he's like an aged, washed defensive lineman. Charlie Batch at quarterback. Henry Ford, founder of the Model T. So, Ford. Henry Ford, okay. Kyle Brady, the tight end. Wow, 71 gets drafted this late, right? Interesting. Mark Bulger is only a 50 overall quarterback. When he ends up becoming like a starter and like an 84, 87 or something overall for the Rams for a while, but he's only a 50 in this game. As we say, don't get too stuck on names, but it's still interesting to know Walt Harris was a disappointment for some time, and then he ended up becoming pretty good for the 49ers for a short time that he was there. I think in one of the future Madden games, he ends up being like an 87, whatever, like solid, not amazing, but he even got, I think in Madden 8 or Madden 7, whatever, I think it's Madden 8 has the player weapons. I think he got like the lockdown weapon. Like, he's like a press corner. You know, he's not going to like lock down a half of the field, but if I remember, he got pretty good ratings for his physicality. Like playing a cover 5 corner, right? Too high, man under, press coverage, keep guys from breaking free over the middle. Like, but you know, he needs to work with the safety and the sideline as help, but he develops into a heck of a player. Again, maybe not in this game, but he does. Round 35, Ty Detmer. Just really fascinating. Jake Delhomme. I know his story. Becomes a starter of the Carolina Panthers, goes to the Super Bowl, loses to Tom Brady, has some good games, good few years, and then he has, what is it, like a 5 interception game in the championship game, I think against the Cardinals, that sends the Cardinals to the Super Bowl. And I think that was the last time Delhomme like really did anything meaningful. And you could arguably say that was probably his worst game. That like ended his career in a lot of ways. Maybe that's unfair, but that's how I remember it. Tell me if I've made a mistake. Interesting as we get to the bottom of the rounds. Herman Moore, old wide receiver, just like a contributor here. Like, hey, you're in round 36 and Herman Moore's still on the board. Sure, we'll take the veteran to help us out, right? Interesting. I keep saying that word, but it's still true. Pin Coates hasn't retired. Have him as a vet, third tight end or whatever in the room. Another quarterback. I think maybe it's the Giants quarterback and another team's wide receiver, whatever. That might be it. I think maybe it's a Giants quarterback. And the other guy is a wide receiver for another team that I couldn't find any reference of who it could possibly have been. Jonathan Goodwin ends up becoming a decent lineman for the 49ers for a little while. Aiken Adele, he is interviewed by Tony Bruno in the Tony Bruno show in like Madden 6, Madden 5, something like that. He becomes a pretty solid linebacker in the game. And he's actually interviewed, like you can actually listen to him in an interview in the Tony Bruno show in another Madden game. So that's interesting. Keep using that word, but it's no less true now than it was the first few times I said it. Doug Pederson, Super Bowl winning head coach. Billy Volek, I thought it was Brad Johnson. Brad Jackson, never mind. Dhani Jones, he's another guy I believe that gets interviewed by Tony Bruno in a later game and becomes like decent and has a decent career. I think he plays some defensive end, so he might be on a 3-4. Am I mistaken about that? I mean, we're getting towards the very end, and we're seeing like the backup linemen and the other positions filling out. There's a certain level of like when you're drafting later here, you want to make sure you don't neglect your backup quarterback position, but you want to make sure that you're happy with your linemen. You're happy with, yeah, see, now we're seeing like the third or fourth halfbacks, right? The Tyrone Wheatleys and all of that. Skip Hicks. Like we're seeing those third running backs. In case one guy gets hurt, and then you've got to like spell with. There's Rudy Johnson ends up becoming good. Bianca Batuka. You see these third running backs, these fourth, fifth wide receivers. So yeah, when your starter, if you have a main starter go down and you're on your backup, you even rotate your backup in your third string, halfback. Sometimes you even have 4 running backs. That if you have a feature back and then you've got like a feature back, a Thunder Lightning combination, like Lightning for speed, Thunder for grinding the ball out. A backup guy is like a pass catcher, a third down running back. Like you have different positions that you can think of for running back and the role playing positions. But like you've also got to think about depth because, you know, they're a hit away and they carry the ball a lot. Neil Smith was still in the league? Wow. Heck of a defensive end that from the 90s. Right? Jake Reed is still in the league. Yeah, now you're really seeing those other, like, you know, the 8th offensive lineman, the 6th, 5th, 6th cornerback, like the 4th whatever defensive tackle, those kind of positions. Cedric Wilson, wide receiver, ends up doing pretty good with the Steelers, didn't do so well with the 49ers. Like, all right, but that's what these positions are. Interesting just to see how they're filled out. We can't see the rest of their ratings. Like their strength, their tackle rating, their catch, things like that. Some of these players have like a specific skill that they're good at. Right? Like, oh, they're just strong, or oh, they're just fast, or oh, they're just a good tackler, or whatever. But that's why they're in the NFL, right? Like, they can do, like, something well. Billy Joe Tolliver still in the league? Wasn't he, like, a quarterback from, like, the 80s? Am I mistaken? Pretty sure Tolliver was, like, a Saints quarterback in the 80s. He's probably going to be, like, a Jerry Rice, like, 41 years old, 40 years old, whatever. I'm willing to bet that he is. That's who I'm thinking of. Remember, there's 47 rounds, and we're pretty much at the end of it. Dave Thomas from Wendy's. Giovanni Carmazzi. The guy the 49ers felt was a better selection than one Thomas Edward Brady. Right? Bill Walsh, of all people, didn't even look at Tom Brady. They looked at Giovanni Carmazzi and said, he's our guy. Now, look. Let's be fair. Let's be completely honest. And there's Ryan Leaf right after him. Wow. Wow. Giovanni Carmazzi rightfully gets a low overall. But not rightfully. He had very good physical abilities. That's why he was drafted. He was tall. He was strong. He was mobile. No, he wasn't Vic Fast. But I don't remember his exact numbers. But he was mobile. He had good speed, acceleration, agility, good strength, and good physical size. He had a decently strong arm. The thing was, and you can see it if you go watch that preseason game, the Niners versus Patriots, their rookie year, him and Tom Brady's rookie year in the same draft class, Giovanni was literally like afraid of the pass rushers. And Tom Brady looked like 80% of the Tom Brady we would later know him as, right? He had that confidence in the pocket. And like Tom Brady said in, like, was it like that whole special about him and the guys picked before him and all that, he said somewhere in there that he saw a coach's notebook, like, that the biggest knock on Brady, that Brady said in the coach's notebook, was like, needs to do everything faster, like triple underline, exclamation points, whatever of the word faster. Processing things faster, you know, release, all that. And Tom took that to heart to improve. But, like, that was, like, a big difference. Giovanni Carmazzi. It's not Carmazzi, it's Carmazzi. But, yeah, the game definitely hates on his ratings. It's one of the things I thought about redoing, and then I'm like, who cares? I'm not going to revitalize his career. It's just the man did not look like he wanted to play in the NFL. Like, in that context, like, I do not want to get hit by these world-class athletes. It's not like I'm signing up like, hey, hit me with world-class athletes. But He looked like he was not ready for the moment at all. And then there's Ryan Leaf. But I said, he does get hated on by not even giving him the few things that he was actually good at. When he could have just dropped his awareness to like 12 or something. But I bet if you gave him... There's Jason Garrett. Clapping, right? Jason Garrett. This is famous. Pete Carroll's famous for chewing gum, and Jason Garrett's famous for clapping on the sideline. So guys that would later become head coaches. No. Was it Billy Joe Tolliver or was it Billy Joe Hobart? Like Hobart. So let me look. Hobart, 1971. Raiders 93. Colts until 2001. Okay. And then Billy Joe Tolliver, born in 1966. I was right about that. And he did play for the Saints. I was right about that. So, 1989. I thought he was even earlier in the 80s. I thought he was like 86, that range. Because I put him at 20 years old, 21 years old, and 87. So, yeah, 1966, Billy Joe Tolliver. And he played with the Packers as an off-season practice squad in 2001. This is the 2002 season. So, they don't have him like officially retired. With Hobart and Tolliver, they don't have him quite retired. And those are the 47 rounds. So, you sat with me looking at all of that for nearly an hour. And if you're still with me, which I doubt all people are, let's re-break down. No, let's redo the video again. No, but let's like re-break down like the thought process. What do you want? Like, what would you truly build your team around? Like 84 Tom Brady when you've got all these like 90-somethings? Right? You got 92 Peyton Manning. So, I mean, he still is going to go. He's not going to be in the second round or whatever. You can't go wrong with that, right? What would you do? But you know that you have a Michael Vick. You know that you have a Drew Brees. And you're playing the game. You're physically playing Madden. Right? Do you even take that? Like, what position do you go with? And in terms of video game purposes, I constantly think, like, I would go for, like, a great tight end. It doesn't matter if it's Madden 2003 or if it's Madden 2014. It doesn't matter if it's Madden 11, if it's Madden 9, whatever. Like, get me an elite tight end that can set the edge and be reliable in the run blocking game, that can be a weapon in the passing game, like can catch passes, break tackles, be a good route runner, but also set the edge in the run game. Like, get me an elite tight end. That is a game changer for me. And there aren't very many of those kinds of guys in the league. I know the value of pass rushers and defensive linemen, but I don't see their value in the game. Like, in the sliders, I have a hard time getting the sliders to have a balance between letting Warren Sapp and Bryant Young rush the passer versus having some 76 overall defensive end against a 92 offensive tackle and just throw the offensive tackle to the ground. Right? Like, by the time that I'm able to get defensive tackles to have an impact in the game, everyone's just getting pancaked and thrown around, either against me or for me. And it's like, I don't know if I can find a balance. I've tried like 20 out of 20 block shedding, break tackle, whatever, and adjusting the computer's pass blocking. I'm sorry to say all the time, but I try to adjust that. And I don't see the value in defensive line. I see the value in their strength. I see the value in them getting pushed off the line of scrimmage. So getting strong guys. But I also see some value in just drafting them and signing free agents and things like that. So where would you go? Who would you pick? What would you do? The same thing we've kind of talked about, corners. I don't know if I see the value in like lockdown corners taking away threats. The fact that I can throw open receivers. So where would you go? What would you do? We finalize everything here. And what roster did we end up with? We got a corner. That is one of the few that we would take, that we would be happy with. We got a pair of corners. So that would be kind of fun to play with. An elite quarterback for a little while. Running back by committee. Whatever at fullback. Whatever at wide receiver. But see, we don't have a tight end that we could be happy with, right? Don't have a lot of strength here. That's kind of disappointing. Only one guy with 90 plus strength. Not a lot of strength at defensive end. Simeon Rice is a good pass rusher. Leonard Little is a good pass rusher. We got John Taylor, not Jason Taylor. Defensive tackle. So it's like, are we a 3-4 defense? I think we were a 3-4 defense, aren't we? We got to be a 3-4 defense without any strength out there, right? But do we have the linebackers for it? We really don't either. Ray Davis. I think the guy ends up being like a Browns middle linebacker that becomes pretty decent. Have like nothing at outside linebacker. We got Wimborne, which we actually like. But 47 overall. Okay. But we got the corner position like a lot locked up. Leroy Butler. Okay, 12-year pro. Not going to be around for so long. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Okay. And yeah, free agents is going to be whatever. Like a bunch of fullbacks. Wide receivers, tight ends, because like everyone's taken, right? Rutledge is already like on another team in real life. Interesting indeed. A defensive tackle with 90 strength. No, it's fascinating to look at how like balanced the league is whenever you just have it by overall. So you're not even going to have much of a free agent pool, right? That's kind of fascinating. So, maybe we can take that information and put together our own little draft sometime. So, let's also take a look at some names and positions that are lower overall rated. NFL. Aaron Smith is right there at left end. Julius Peppers there, 75 strength, 83 overall. Sean Ellis. Go to right ends. Justin Smith, 89 overall. Willie McGinnis. Bruce Smith. Defensive tackles. Richard Seymour, he's still like one of the top D tackles, so yeah, that's not a surprise at all. Like he plays 3-4 defensive end for the Patriots later, but interesting. I keep saying that, but it's still true. 93 overall, 1-year pro. Yeah, Ray Lewis ended up with his own team, and so did Seau and a few other guys. Yeah, we ended up with some top corners out there. It'd be actually kind of fascinating to run this team, right? The team that we were handed. Like, we didn't pick them. This is who we have. This is who we're playing with. This is the hand that we've been dealt. Not chosen, but dealt. And I think it can help prove, like, what kind of value do we have at that corner position? Is it worth taking? You know what? Let us save it. We might actually have some fun with it. Okay. That could be interesting to play with. And then use that information to do one that's more serious in the future. Cool? Cool.